The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. As they were coming down the mountainside, the disciples put this question to Jesus. Why do the scribes claim that Elijah must come first? In reply, he said, Elijah is indeed coming and he will restore everything. I assure you, though, that Elijah has already come, but they did not recognize him, and they did as they pleased with him. The Son of Man will suffer at their hands in the same way. The disciples then realized that he had been speaking to them about John the Baptizer. The Gospel of the Lord. Let us all be seated. Today is Saturday of the second week of Advent, and the Gospel for today continues to teach us on how we must prepare ourselves either for our death or the general judgment day. Outside in the world, there is what you call the grade school, where you used to study for 7 years from grade 1 up to grade 7. In the spiritual life, there are also 7 steps that we must undergo. And what is important is the 6th day, which comes before the 7th day. The 7th day, like on the days of creation, is when God rested. So the 7th day or the 7th grade is a time when all of us have reached perfect faith and the beginnings of charity, and so we can also rest in our spiritual efforts to work for the salvation of our souls. So while Christ rested in the tomb on the 7th day, we also must rest in our effort in working for our salvation on the Sabbath, the 7th day, which has been described as a day of rest, and only those who have rested in faith and charity together with Christ in the tomb, they alone will resurrect on Easter Sunday, which is described as the 8th day. Now, if you will notice, in the training of the apostles, something happened to them on the 6th day. The Gospel says that on the 6th day, they went up a mountain, Mount Tabor, and only 3 apostles accompanied Christ: Peter, James, and John. And then Christ, on top of the mountain, was transfigured. And so the three apostles saw Christ with their intellect, saw him as God and man. We believe that Christ is God and man, but we do not see with our minds. We do not see that he is God and man. We only believe that he is God and man. But on the sixth day, if we progress in our spiritual life, as the first reading keeps on repeating the Psalms, we shall see the face of God as God and man. And that will be the sign that we are ready to die or be judged during the general judgment and go to heaven. That would be the sign. And so the Mass describes to us during the apparition of Christ on Mount Tabor that the three apostles saw Christ with Moses and Elijah, as the Gospel says. Because Moses and Elijah were going to confirm that Jesus was God and man. So in the spiritual life, the sixth day is of the utmost importance. It is the infallible sign that we will surely go to heaven. When one day we see Christ, we see, not only believe, but we see what we believe, that Christ is God and man. And that happened on the sixth day. Now, did you notice that among the 12 apostles, only 3 saw Christ as God and man? Only 3 of them went up the mountain to see Christ. How come? Because the others have not reached grade 6. They have not improved in their spiritual life to the point that they could reach the 6th day. So they were not worthy to go up and see Christ with their mind as God and man. Later on Easter Sunday, the rest of the apostles would see Christ as God and man. But on this day, on the Transfiguration, they did not see. And so the gospel for today emphasizes the importance that we also see Elijah, who has the spirit of John the Baptist, because they are the ones who would confirm to us that we have reached the 6th day and therefore worthy to see Christ as God and man and deserve to go to heaven. And so, as the story goes, it was Saint Bonaventure who told us of the importance of that 6th day, that in the spiritual life, we must grow up grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 5, grade 6. We should reach in the spiritual life grade 6. And Saint Benedict calls the monastery a school of the Lord's service, where we should reach grade 6 because as Saint Bonaventure says, because you have to reach that before you die or before the general judgment day when we face God in judgment. You have to reach grade 6. When Saint Bonaventure wrote this book entitled Hexameron on the 7 days of creation, nobody understood it. So people were not waiting to find out if they are on the 6th day or on the 6th grade. They were not finding out. They could not find out because they could not understand the theology on the 6th day. Until there was a young Catholic priest studying in Germany who studied it, and he began to see that during his day in Germany, the signs that the end times was approaching, and therefore he spiritually had to reach the 6th day. And so he studied the fathers of the church and the doctors of the church to make sure that he reached in his soul, in his spiritual life, the 6th day. And that young priest was Joseph Ratzinger. And so he wrote a book on that, commenting on Saint Bonaventure. And when he became Pope, he said to the whole world, which nobody noticed, he said that we are now on the 6th day, and if we want to hurry up to reach the 6th day in our spiritual life, we must observe the rule of Saint Benedict. And so that precisely is the reason we are in the monastery. We are not here for any reason except to make sure that we have lived and reached the 6th day in our spiritual life, which consists in knowing all the commandments of Christ and obeying all His commandments. Just as in ordinary schools, you have to learn the subjects. Our subject is the commandments of Christ. If and when, therefore, you have learned through the Gospels what are the commandments of Christ, and you have put it into practice by studying the fathers and the doctors of the church, then St. Thomas of Aquin says, you have climbed Mount Tabor. And when you're up there, you will see Christ the man, but with Elijah. And the moment you see Christ the man with Elijah, Christ will suddenly be transformed. And you will see Christ as God. And seeing Christ as God, spiritually, you can now rest, because your labor in saving your soul is over. And all you have to wait now is to resurrect body and soul with Christ. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.